Spain versus England is going to be the Euros 2024 final, and we're going to talk today just how both teams got there in the end. And we're going to start off with Spain versus France in a game that honestly I believe that football won in the end. Honestly, football won in the end because I look at this France team, how they even got to the semifinals. We talked about it in the last video. I have no idea. But where do we even start off? We start off with the way that France set up in this game. Typical way that they set up throughout the tournament. Rather than playing a 4-3-1-2, they had a 4-3-3. Antoine Griezmann dropping out for Ousmane Dembele, which made sense considering the fact that Ousmane Dembele was France's biggest threat in the last game, the limited time he was on the field. But I also felt it was harsh on Griezmann because he was pretty good in the last game as well. Would have made more sense if they played with a double pivot and then the four of them up top, but Deschamps is not going to do all that. But Spain set up the same way we expected with a 4-3-3. Of course, had a few casualties with the suspensions and injuries, so they made the necessary changes. But man, first person that I wanted to talk about was Rodri. And De La Fuente described him as a computer. And man, I don't even think that goes far enough to describe what Rodri does for this team. I think you look at Man City, and I feel like at Man City, we talk about is what players have an impact in the system. I genuinely believe Rodri is the system. Honestly, and I'm not even trying to come here and claim that he should win the Ballon d'Or or he's the best player in the world this season, but man, this guy every single week, and it's something I always notice, he never drops below even a 7. 7 out of 10, he's always there. Even on his bad days, he's still one of the best players on the field. Rodri, keeping things ticking, always an outlet, always someone you can give the ball to and know that he's not going to lose it, always in the right positions, both offensively and defensively, can get you a goal. His ability and knack to be in the right place at the right time is just unparalleled. And his commitment to the team. There was a moment in the game, I can't remember what minute it was, but I remember Spain had pressured the midfield of France, and France had bypassed the midfield by going around. And I believe it was Theo Hernandez who was bombing forward, and he was about to play across to the edge of the box. I think Mbappe had come back, and I saw Rodri out of the corner of my eye because he'd been the midfielder to press up, and he bust a gut to get back. Absolutely bust a gut to get back to support his midfield partner in Fabian Ruiz. And then I think it was one of the center backs who cleared the ball. But even just that ability and that commitment to get back into position after pressing in the first place. He's a computer, as De La Fuente said. He does the right things usually, most of the time, at the right time. Incredible footballer. But of course, the people who are going to get the credit are the attackers. And I look at someone like Lamine Yamal today. I told you guys this before. I'm not going to come here and try and sing as though Lamine Yamal is shocking me. I told you guys this kid does not make sense. I watch this guy at Barcelona week in, week out, and you look at his goal against France. Cuts inside, into the top corner, off the post and in. Off the post and in. My man has no chance. No chance. And it reminds me of a goal he scored previously in Barcelona's season. I can't remember exactly who it was. I think it was Granada or it might have been Mallorca. But man, he is ridiculous in this game. I genuinely believe Theo Hernandez would give him a hard time, but he made Theo Hernandez look pretty average in this game. The way he contorted his body, jinked past Rabiot, and just top. This guy is reinvigorating my love for the sport. Honestly, you guys don't understand. Being a Barcelona fan, I've watched this footballing club kill my love for the sport. I watch Real Madrid year in, year out, and they win games they shouldn't win. And I watch Barcelona completely disgrace themselves on a world stage every single year. And I question my love for the sport. But when I see players like this, when I see players like Vinicius, which is ironic because he plays for Real Madrid, when I see players like Leao, I see players like Arda Güler, players like Florian Wirtz, my love for the sport, it's reviving. It comes back. It's back. It's reinvigorated. Man, Lamine Yamal, 16 years old. 16 years old. This kid is 16, 2007. That's ridiculous, man. Fabian Ruiz and Olmo, who got the second goal for Spain in this game, continue to be some of the best players at this tournament. Fabian Ruiz, he's shown levels in this tournament. A player who I think his move to PSG has really killed his stock. I believe anybody going to PSG, that will kill your stock. Not a footballing club that really harnesses footballers, really. But man, Fabian Ruiz throughout this tournament, just the fulcrum able to get into the box, but also able to be a deep lying playmaker, able to support, be that deepest midfielder, allow Rodri to go forward as well. Unparalleled. And Dani Olmo in this game as well. You look at the flick, sending Tchouaméni back to France, back to Real Madrid, and then brilliant finish. Of course, Koundé got the touch in the end, but I still think that would have probably gone in even if Koundé didn't get a touch on it. But it's not the first time we've seen Dani Olmo do something like that. I remember him doing it against Bayern Munich earlier in the season. I even remember him doing it in the Champions League at one point. Even in this tournament, his goal against Georgia was incredible technical ability. So, man, this Spain team, throughout the tournament, they've just wowed me. The way in which they're so direct, so good off the pace. And generally, when France took that 1-goal lead, I generally thought, okay, Spain might be in a bit of trouble here. But Lamine Yamal, as we said, that sort of goal just gives your team momentum. And straight after that, the Dani Olmo sucker punch to France, they weren't really going to recover from that. And they definitely weren't going to recover considering the fact they literally don't score goals. Throughout this tournament, they haven't scored goals. Ousmane Dembele comes into the side to replace Antoine Griezmann. Once again, you see that midfield three of Rabiot, Kanté, and Tchouaméni. No creativity. No sense of attacking verve. No forward moving. And it's just like, Deschamps, what do you expect? You don't have anybody in the midfield who's going to occupy the higher positions in the field. And then he brings on Griezmann in the last 15, 20 minutes, hoping that he can do something. That's not how you do football. That's not how things work. Spain did really well to hold and contain France to just the 1 goal. Kylian Mbappe got the assist for the first goal without the mask, and we all thought, okay, maybe it was the mask that was causing problems, but it's not the mask, man. When I heard that, him saying that, oh, the mask is hindering my game, I didn't like that. I don't know about you guys. You guys might see it as, of course, the mask hurts people. I've seen players wear masks and play good games. I've seen Victor Osimhen. I've seen Robert Lewandowski. I've seen Harry Kane. I've seen players wear masks, and it does not hinder their performances. This man cannot be telling me that a mask is the reason he's been playing the way he's been playing this tournament. That is unacceptable, especially from the quote-unquote best player in the world. I don't want to hear that. Absolutely awful tournament from Kylian Mbappe. And I'm not going to come here and try and say that Mbappe is a fraud or Mbappe is overrated or Mbappe is not the best player in the world. He probably still is. And I think that's more of an indication of the state of football now than Kylian Mbappe himself. But, man, what a poor tournament from him. And I look at this tournament, and this is the sort of tournament that you expect the big players to come out. And I'll probably make another video on this another time, but none of the big players have really turned up. None of them. You look at his partner on the other side, Ousmane Dembele. No consistency in Ousmane Dembele's game. Honestly, no consistency whatsoever. I have a very good friend who loves Ousmane Dembele. Ousmane Dembele stan. We've told him to let this thing die. This guy is not a player that you should still be hanging your coat on. He's not a consistent player. 1 week, Ousmane Dembele is a 10 out of 10. The next week, he's a 2 out of 10. Genuinely a completely inconsistent footballer. And I feel like those are the most frustrating footballers because you can see something. There's a spark, but it's not there. It can't turn into a fire. So he had no impact in this game. Poor crosses throughout the game. Generally did not give Marc Cucurella any sort of real threats, even though I genuinely thought he would have a great game against Cucurella, who's not as good as of a left back. But no impact from him. Deschamps, once again, seems like he's relying way too much on Mbappe in this team. The team kind of feels like if Mbappe is not the one that's going to save them, they're going to lose the game. You saw it in the World Cup final, even throughout the World Cup. Of course, Antoine Griezmann in that tournament was carrying his weight. He did not carry his weight in this tournament. It's actually a very big shame because he was incredible for Atletico Madrid. But in this tournament, we didn't see any of that. The defense, probably the only redeeming quality for France, I think, going forward. And of course, if they can just fix that attack, get other players in the attack who are on song, who are playing well. And it's very confusing because Marcus Thuram is coming off an incredible season at Inter Milan. Ousmane Dembele is a good player, but as we've said, he's not consistent. Antoine Griezmann, we've talked about him. Kolo Muani did not have a good season at PSG. And as an all-round footballer, I don't know what people see in Kolo Muani. How that man commanded a £90 million fee. Again, the state of football in today's modern game. But, of course, Spain moved through. Thank goodness. This France team being in a Euros final, despite playing the way they've played, would have been absolutely disgraceful. And I thought they were going to do it just through that defense. Just through that defense, I thought that would ride them. They would be able to ride that luck and find a way, sneak their way. But luckily, Lamine Yamal came to save the day. and knock them out. But who are they going to face in the next round? And the team they're actually going to face is England, who we're going to talk about. And England, they set up so well against the Netherlands. In this game, they persisted with the same 3-4-3 formation that we saw them play against the Swiss, which was actually a very good setup from Southgate, considering the fact that the Swiss set up with a back five themselves. And I felt that we actually need to give Southgate a bit of credit, because I look at the way he set up in both of these games. England had a very good first half in both of these games, better than anything I've seen them play throughout this tournament. England haven't been good in most of this tournament, in most of the games, and they shouldn't even be here, especially when you look at the teams they've played. They haven't played anyone particularly good up until the final, but they've ridden their luck and they've gone here. And I think the momentum from that Slovakia victory is what has really propelled them here, because I've been seeing a bit of steady progression with England. The quality of the performances has started to come up. The intensity in the play has started to improve. And this game was just the same. You look at it here, the same 3-4-3 that we talked about. Kyle Walker, Guehi, Stones, Saka, Trippier in that back five. You then have the midfield two of Rice and Mainu. And then the front three of Bellingham, Foden, and Harry Kane. And then Netherlands had their typical 4-2-3-1, in which you had Denzel Dumfries playing high and wide and Cody Gakpo hugging the touchline on the opposite side. And it was a pretty routine tactical setup from both sides. But I think one thing that was really paramount in the opening few phases of this game was that the Netherlands were quick. They were quick, they were aggressive, they were direct, and that's what bore them the goal in the early phases of the game. Xavi Simons nicking the ball off of Declan Rice, and it would lead to a goal for the Dutch. But of course, as the game started to grow, you saw England gaining a bit of dominance, but that didn't hinder the way the Netherlands were going to play. Memphis Depay was going to keep on dropping deep, as I'm going to show you examples of, and he was the main outlet for them. Now, in this first example here, you can see Memphis Depay being that outlet that we talked about, coming deep and able to provide that outlet for his defenders. And of course, when he's coming that deep, it's going to drag people out of position, defenders especially. And by dragging those defenders especially out of position, you're creating spaces for other people. You can see here the amount of space that he's created for Xavi Simons. Unfortunately, the Netherlands weren't able to take advantage of it. You move to the next side. Here, coming into that deeper position, playing the ball out wide to Xavi Simons, you look at the run that Daniel Malen is making. John Stones being pulled to a position that he does not want to be in. And this was the main way that the Netherlands were able to break out of that press that England were playing. Because, as you would see later on in the game, the English had a lot of numerical superiorities throughout the field. You move it on to the next one here, even from the keeper, dropping so far deep to receive the ball, and then I believe he spun John Stones and then played the ball out wide. So I think it was Denzel Dumfries in this situation. Again, providing that outlet that the Netherlands were able to look to be able to get themselves out of danger. But of course, as I said, the game grew on. England gained control, gained a grasp of the game, and you really started to see their good players coming into the fold. That numerical superiority that we talked about here, you can see the way in which the English people press. They're so direct, so quick, basically man to man, and essentially just matching the Dutch in the way that they're building up. Again, you look at this example here, Kobbie Mainoo being very aggressive, Harry Kane essentially on the goalkeeper's toes, Phil Foden cutting out the pass to Nathan Ake, Jude Bellingham doing the same on the other side. But it wasn't just in the press that this team was able to impose the numerical superiority. It was also in the way in which they had the ball. And not only did they have that numerical superiority, they also had movements with that superiority. So they were dragging people out of position, leaving the Dutch defenders all at sea, not knowing who to mark at what time. And it created so much danger for the Dutch throughout the game. You look at this example here, in which Phil Foden is running into that space. And just by him running into that space, it creates all that space on the left-hand side for Harry Kane and for Jude Bellingham, in which they can run into. Bukayo Saka notices that space, plays it into it. And that's something that you notice throughout the game from England. They were moving the ball quickly. They were actually trying to impose a bit of tempo and impose that high frequency passing that we haven't seen from them throughout the tournament. In this example here, you see Kobbie Mainoo, who was incredible in this game, might I add. Playing higher up the field, he notices that he's not going to pick up the ball here. So Tyon Reinders not knowing who he has to press in this situation. Because if he leaves Kobbie Mainoo, then you have Phil Foden who's behind him. And he can't leave that responsibility to Cody Gakpo, because Cody Gakpo still has Bukayo Saka on the right side and Kyle Walker to deal with. So Kobbie Mainoo understands the situation at hand and drops deeper. As you can see his positioning here, he's moving away. And Tyon Reinders notices that he's leaving the threat area for the Dutch. So he essentially lets him go. Kobbie Mainoo takes advantage of that leeway, goes to the defensive areas of England, picks the ball up. And in this positioning here, you can see the way he's dragged Xavi Simons out of position. The way that Declan Rice's positioning is dragged Schouten out of position. and it's essentially left Reinders all at sea. Look at how much space is in that middle area of the field. One pass straight to Jude Bellingham completely bypasses the whole midfield, and England are gone. This is actually the play that led up to the England goal that would make it 1-1, as Harry Kane would win a very dubious penalty. Do I think it was a penalty? No, I don't think it was a penalty. I think Harry Kane kicked into Dumfries more than Dumfries kicking Harry Kane, but nevertheless, the way England played, they deserve to be 1-1. Anywho, you move it on to the next one. Here, again, Kobbie Mainoo noticing where his teammates are, understanding the movement of his teammates, noticing that Phil Foden is running on the blind side. Again, Team Reinders does not know where to be, because in this situation here, Xavi Simons has pressed way too high up. He is pressed way too high up. The same with Daniel Malen, the same with Denzel Dumfries. And it's completely left Reinders in a position in which he doesn't know whether he should press forward or stay back, leaving Phil Foden with all that space to run into. And then he's gone, and England go on the attack again. Moving on again. This was the most striking example of it throughout the game. The most striking example of the movements and numerical superiority and just confusion from this Dutch defense and midfield alike. You look at Harry Kane's position, he was dropping deep throughout the game, as you'd expect from him. Dropping deep, consistently providing that outlet, consistently trying to get onto the ball if he noticed that there were moments of the game where he wasn't being involved. Dropping deep, and look at Kobbie Mainoo's positioning. Now in this position, the Dutch look safe, right? You move it on one forward. Virgil van Dijk is in a position of bother here, because now who do I leave Kobbie Mainoo to? Who do I leave Harry Kane to? Because in the previous slide, Virgil van Dijk was on Kobbie Mainoo. He was marking Kobbie Mainoo because Harry Kane had dropped deeper. But now Harry Kane has gone back to that striking position. Kobbie Mainoo is essentially walking back to his own position. And it leaves Van Dijk in a spot of bother because he doesn't know who he has to press, to the point that you can see him barking orders at his midfielders, telling them you need to press up and you need to mark him because I have to mark this person next to me. That communication doesn't go through as quickly as possible, leaving Kobbie Mainoo in a sea of space. At this level, it may not look like a lot of space, but you give a player of this quality that much space, you're cooked. He runs into the space created by Harry Kane dropping deep and then moving forward and leaving Van Dijk completely confused. And then Kobbie Mainoo does a little bit of trickery, plays it into Phil Foden, and then this is the shot that Denzel Dumfries cleared off the line. Again, that movement, that quick tempo moving, that unexpected dynamic movement off the ball that creates space and creates confusion for the opposition that allows you to take advantage of that. Look at Kyle Walker. This is the movement I'm talking about. Kyle Walker is the right center back in this team. Yeah, look how high up the field he is. Bukayo Saka is the right wing back in this team. Yeah, look at the half space position he's taking up. Phil Foden is the number 10. Yeah, look at the wide positioning he's taking up. Look at Declan Rice. Look at Kobbie Mainoo. Look at Kieran Trippier holding his width on the other side, not allowing the Dutch to play too compact, to play too narrow, still stretching them out, still creating spaces in between the lines, in between the defenders for people like Bellingham, Kobbie, Saka, Foden. You see another example of that movement here, Phil Foden running into the space in between De Vrij and Van Dijk. Harry Kane's movement was causing De Vrij so much problems in this game. I noticed that he was reluctant to come to the side of Virgil van Dijk, which makes sense. Shouts and following the run of Phil Foden, and Harry Kane is able to pick up the ball. He has a few runners. He has Bellingham in behind Van Dijk. He has Saka on the right side. And look at how narrow and how deep the Dutch are. You look at Memphis Depay's positioning. We talked about it at the start. He was the outlet for the Dutch, but he was not able to be the outlet for very long, because once England grasped the dominance, grasped the control of the game, they were being penned farther and farther and farther back, meaning that Depay had to support his teammates farther down the field, meaning he didn't have any options once he spun the defender to play the ball to. Look at Kyle Walker's run. And if you watch the game, this wasn't even a long gut-busting run into a sea of space. This was not anything of the like. This was a quick sprint into a place of pretty much no real danger. If we're being completely honest, Bukayo Saka is not going to be able to formulate a pass that's going to get past both Ake and Gakpo and get past Reinders that will get to Kyle Walker. But all that run does is create space. And look at how much space there is for Kobbie Mainoo and Phil Foden. Look at how much space the two of them are in. And I was sitting there watching this game like, goodness me, these Netherlands guys, they are going to be absolutely pummeled if they keep on playing the way they're playing. If they don't get... And I was watching the game, and all that was coming to my head is, you need a third center back in there. You need either a third center back in there, or you need a third midfielder. Or Xavi Simons needs to do a lot more defensive work than he's doing right now. he needs to do a lot more defensive work. But of course, that run from Kyle Walker leaves all the space. Phil Foden picks up the ball, unleashes an absolute screamer, just comes off the post, kisses the post, and goes wide. But again, that movement off the ball, and that's one thing that we haven't seen England do all tournaments. It's been labored, it's been slow, it's been predictable, it's just been dull. But in this game, it seemed like everybody was up for it, and it definitely showed in the way they played. You move it on again. This isn't even an example of numerical superiority. This isn't even an example of movement. This is just Kobbie Mainoo, right? You look at his positioning here. He feints the run into the space just to check his run. Stops the run, leaving the defender, leaving the midfielder. Midfielder is running to God knows where he's going to, and Kobbie Mainoo just comes back, receives the ball into the space. Just a little bit of Kobbie Mainoo appreciation. He was absolutely incredible in this game. Moving on again, Jude Bellingham, he wasn't good in this game whatsoever, but he definitely put in a shift, running the channels, creating space for other people, winning tackles, being physical, as you'd expect from Jude Bellingham. Makes a run into the space that realistically that pass is never going to come to him. But what does he do? He creates space for Kieran Trippier on the far side. Ball goes to him. Look at all the space that Phil Foden is creating for himself. Because Charlton has followed the running of Bellingham, and now Phil Foden is in all that space. And this is what I mean by I think Xavi Simons in this game needed to do a bit more. Because at this point in the game, Memphis Depay had been injured, and Xavi Simons had been shifted to the right-hand side. But I think what you really need is for Xavi Simons to play in that midfield position and play in the midfield rather than being a number 10 or being a number 9.5 or a false 9. He needed to be a midfielder who was going to run up and down, a box-to-box. But I guess that's not his play. That's not his traits. That's not what he's good at. So Coleman was kind of reluctant to play him in that midfield 3, which is why he ended up bringing on Vermin and making it a 3 in midfield. And then Xavi Simons adopted a right-wing position. But again, you look at this position here. Not movement, not numerical superiority, just quality. Kobbie Mainoo sees Phil Foden out the corner of his eye. Just a little flick. Gives it to Phil Foden. He unleashes a strike, saved by the keeper. But again, that movement off the ball, just having a bit of fun out there. And that's something I noticed England were doing. They haven't been doing it all tournament. But I watched this game and it actually looked like this team was clicking into gear. And it's something I always felt would happen, especially watching that Slovakia game where they were absolutely diabolical. They were horrific in the group stages. They weren't too good against Switzerland. They were good in the first half, not good in the second half. But I look at a victory like that against Slovakia. Those sort of victories win you tournaments. Those sort of victories take you all the way to the final. Because those sort of victories create that momentum that nobody's going to stop. And at the end of the day, it wasn't the tactics that won the game. It was a simple through ball from Cole Palmer and a wonderful finish from Ollie Watkins, which, to be honest, in these tournaments, I've said it many times, elite players are going to win you big games. Individual quality will always reign supreme in these knockout tournaments. Always. They will always reign supreme because you can always have moments from big players because they will always do that for you. They will consistently be out of the ordinary. But of course, the Dutch, I just think the main reason they didn't win this game is just lack of quality. I look at that midfield, Schouten, Veerman, Reinders. No offense to any of them, but none of them are at the level that you would want them. I think if this game had a Frankie de Jong, a Koop Miners, Ryan Gravenberch, I saw him on the bench. Man, the way his career has kind of just fallen off is a real shame. But I look at someone like Frankie de Jong, someone like Koop Miners. If they were in this game, maybe the Dutch might have had a better outcome. But never here or there. England are in the final. And I don't hate it. When I was watching the game live, I kind of hated it because I felt like they don't deserve to be in this tournament. They have not been good. But I look at their game back. I watched their game back against Switzerland. I watched their game back against the Netherlands. And something's building. They're actually building up to hit their peak at the right time, which is definitely not something you can say for a lot of the teams in this tournament. France have been pretty much rubbish the entire tournament, but they've just been sneaking through. But England have been steadily improving. Against Slovenia, it was a bit better. Against Slovakia, it was much better. Against Switzerland, it was better. And now against the Dutch, as I showed in the first half, it was much improved. So definitely something to look out for in the final. Will we see this same high-tempo, quick football? I doubt. I thoroughly expect Spain to have much of the ball, 60, maybe even 65%. It will be interesting to see how England combat that, especially considering the fact they don't have fast players on the break as they tend to do with Rashford and Sterling. More, they have players who like the ball to feet, and I don't think England are going to have the ball as much as they would like in this game in the final. But as he said, anything can happen in big finals. I will be on Spain's side. I'll be rooting for La Joya. I'll be rooting for Lamine Yamal, rooting for Pedri, rooting for Spain. I'll be hoping that they will come away victorious in Berlin. But let me know down in the comments who you want to win the game in Berlin on Saturday. Or is it on Sunday? I believe it's on Sunday. Let me know down in the comments. Of course, thank you guys so much for watching the videos. Thank you so much for the support on the channel. If you're new to the channel, make sure you like, subscribe, share the content with anybody that who you think might be interested in the content. It will mean the world to me. This is something that I'm just starting up and I'm not intending on stopping anytime soon. But of course, let me know. This is a discussion. This isn't just me talking about football. If you guys enjoyed the video, as I said, like, subscribe, comment to stay within the algorithm. But of course, as always, it's au revoir from me. Take care of yourselves.